Has enjoined unto us here in Stone Mountain, Georgia. My name is Esaac ben Israel, and I'm the head priest of the United Congregation of Israel. And I am joined here with Mother Lael. And we are going to get off into what we were supposed to get into last week, into our counting of our holy days, because we know that how things work. You have to operate in two worlds, if you will, because by the time their new year comes around, you have to be ready to present your days off, or what days you're going to want off. So you have to prepare for that, even though what they're about to have in a few weeks is their new year. It's not our new year, okay? But we have to still operate in those things. That's part of our captivity, that you have to deal with these things. And a lot of times, people find fault with you if you do. They find fault with you if you don't. But when you consider that Daniel had a Hebrew name that Hebrews called him, but then he had a government name that the leaders of the Babylonian rule, if you will, this is what they called him in their little arena or whatever. So, that was something that he had to deal with. He had to walk in both of these situations. So it's not an unheard of thing for us to speak one way when we're talking to those of understanding about the days and whatnot, because it is written that we're not supposed to even let the name of other gods come out of our mouth. So, but we know these days are named after gods, so I can't, we know that the way Yahweh set it up was first day, second day, third day, fourth day, fifth day, sixth day, Sabbath day, okay? So, but if we say, I'm supposed to, pick up my check on the third day, you probably won't get paid but once a month. So I don't think you're gonna survive like that. So then you gonna have to say that pagan name if you plan on getting paid. That is a part of your punishment. You have to do things that you're not supposed to do. But what happened is sometimes we find out the word, and then we want to try and cut out everything that we may encounter. If you can cut out everything that you're going to encounter, then we're not in captivity anymore. I mean, you free. If you can do all of that, then now Yahweh has been made a lie. So I think that's something that we have to consider. So, and most of our last week's Bible study, we ended up going over a lot of things about the things taken that they call Thanksgiving. But when we get into Leviticus 23, it gives us the breakdown of all of Yahweh's days, the days that are important unto him. And it's important that we have some form of understanding about how we come to these days. I was in the Word for years before I understood anything about counting the days, and I wasn't really trying to figure it out. I knew that they put out a calendar, so I waited until the calendar came out. But see, Yahweh has a way of pushing you and making you get off, your John Brown hind parts and go and do something. So what we're gonna first start off reading before we get to Leviticus, I want to go. You know what? Let's go ahead and go in Leviticus. We'll come back to that. And if you don't have your Farmer's Almanac, you can get that on almanac.com.
Right. Well, then
so you can go if you're not able to see the things that we're putting up. But we're going to try to put those up as well.
Yeah, it's a small fee you pay for it, but I mean, I emailed it out to most of our brothers and sisters, and so they should have gotten a copy online.
All right. And you should be able to see where we're going, but sometimes counting it, you might have to blow it up a little bit, especially if your eyesight, is like mine. It's good to, when I first wake up. Toward the day, it'd be like, you know what, we tired, boss.
Yeah.
So, I got a whole lot of Bibles back there. I'd be like, oh, one of them kids gonna read this, because I can't read nothing out of that. This is practice. So we're gonna start at Leviticus chapter 23, and let's start that at verse 1.
Verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feasts of Yahweh, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, even these are my feasts.
Now, one of the things that you have to deal with when we're talking about holy convocations, see, a convocation, you'll find people, and you have to learn to pay attention to words. When they say, the great gathering, a convocation is a gathering. There's there's even some Christian organizations where they'll put out something and they're talking about the convocation, and we just like certain words. It's just like convocation. Ooh, Mufasa. We like it. That sounds amazing. The part that they leave out is the holy part. Okay. See, we so happy that something sounds really good with the convocation, we forget the holy. Now, convocation is a gathering. Okay. So they have a gathering. But what must be done for the gathering to be holy? Oh, now we have to do some things. See, that's the difference between Yahweh's days and the days that man has set. So you have days and then you have holy days. So for those days to be holy, that means there's going to be some rules and regulations set forth about how you deal with it. Now, it is amazing that we don't want to deal with any issue when it comes down to this. I don't like restriction. But when it comes down, we all about restriction when it comes down to us. We want to live in a gated community. We want to be able to go in places where everybody else can't go. Okay? We want this for ourselves though, not for our God. See how we operate with that? We want to go in clubs that everybody can't go into. See, we don't want to be in the club that everybody going, because that's where the mess happens. So we want to go in the upscale club. So we go where they say no white tees. So we can have a higher echelon. Now, how you want all those things for yourself, but you don't want any of those things for your Elohim? He's not supposed to have any regulations. He's supposed to let anybody come. But how many of us opened our door and said, anybody can come in here? How many of us do it? See, but we want to put that on him and say, oh, if y'all have regulation, then y'all not, dealing with the people. And what happens is we'll make any change that we need to make for some mess. Let it be about some stuff about righteousness. We don't want to be bothered. But we'll make all kind of changes. The job tell us you got to wear this uniform. Monday, we're going to have on that uniform. Hey, even if the club say you got to wear, there's some people that the only reason they put on good shoes because they say you can't wear no tennis shoes in here. That's the only reason they want. So we're able to deal with regulation when it comes down to the things that we want. But for things to be proclaimed holy, they have to be set forth in a certain way. This is why it read, hey, before you come to present yourself before Yahweh, sanctify yourself 3 days. Do not lay with your wife. Wash your clothes. Wash yourself. Then come and present yourself before me. Somehow we forgot that that's in there. So understand, when people have these gatherings, they're having convocation. That's why when you see the gathering, you look around, One person in a skirt, the other one in some jeans, the other one in some Daisy Dukes. One of them got the head covered. One of them have nothing on their head. I mean, it's all kind of things, and you're like, so what's going on here? It's just a gathering. And that's why people have gatherings, so that there won't be any rules. But Yahweh has regulations, okay? To be holy, to be set apart, there's something that has to be done for you to be set apart. Go ahead.
You know, there's some strange things about that, though. Even back in the Christian church, you know, back in the day, I would say, you know, we would go to church, but we went, you know, in your Sunday best. I mean, you just didn't go any kind of way. And nowadays, you know, we're going in pants, we're going in all. But I mean, back in the day, there were things that we did. You know, you washed, you prepared yourself before you went to church. You just didn't go anyway. Then we come into the truth and we kind of struggle with these things as though, you know, that part is not there. That is different. We don't have to do it anymore.
You know what else we done forgot? The only people who had a head covering on Sunday morning was the mother's board. Do you know that the mother's board, they couldn't sit down there without a hat? If one of them sat down without a hat, the other sister's like, where your hat? I left it, I was rushing. Well, sit right there, child. Let me go get one. You can't be down here without no hat. Head covering. But the only ones that had it were the mothers who are what? The honorable women in the church.
Now, I went to church in a very, very old-fashioned Baptist church where the women were required to wear head coverings. However, they wore them in the form of, you remember those little chapel caps that you used to wear on your head? And I mean, some of them, you know, they almost look like the little yarmulkes that people wear, you know, where it would only cover part of your head, but they were required, so women had to come with their little chapel caps. But it was my grandmother's church. It was a very, very old-fashioned church. Those people in that church, you know, they would even look at the length of your skirt. If it was too short, you know, they would.
Right.
You know, so, but that was that old church.
Yeah. No, that was when they were still reading.
Thank you.
That's what happened. Because the biggest church, watch the biggest televangelist. They don't touch that book. I mean, at least Joel Osteen hold it up before he start. He'll show it to you. You know he got one. He show it to you. He show you the book, and he must throw it because you never see that book again.
Exactly.
You go listen to T.D. Jakes. He ain't got no book. He might do some little stuff here and there. They're not dealing with that book, and they have to deal with a verse here and a verse there, because if you read too much in the same sitting, it's going to bust up some other doctrine, and people don't want their doctrine bust up. So they you know have to just get one or two verses. So Yahweh says in at the end of verse 2, these are my feasts. So if you're questioning about whether or not you should deal with these things, these are his. Mm-hmm. They're not ours to change. They're not ours to decide that we're not going to deal with. Go ahead.
Verse 3. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of rest and holy convocation. You shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of Yahweh in all your dwellings.
In all your dwellings. This means everywhere where you live. So people say, well, you know what, we don't live in the land anymore. Are you living? You know, and people will also like to say the Sabbath is about, you know, Jewish religion. This is about the creation of the earth. Mm-hmm. I ask people a simple question. Exactly. Do you live on this earth? All right then. That's all I need. Unless you come from somewhere else, then you ain't got to deal with it. Go ahead.
Verse 4, these are the feasts of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons.
Now, the important part here is now we're dealing with seasons, meaning now they have to be at particular times, all right? They have a specific time frame that these things have to happen. You can't just keep some stuff. Now, there are times when our people have come from captivity, and they end up saying, you know, hey, we ain't kept this in so long. let's keep a feast like the Feast of Tabernacles, because it's about that time. Because, hey, they so happy that they just came out of captivity. So, yeah, they'll do something. That'll be that one thing. We'll just keep it going. Now we're going to make it a yearly little something.
Right.
And now we're going to get off into some mess. Go ahead.
Verse 5. In the 14th day of the first month at even is Yahweh's Passover.
All right. So before we can get to the 14th day of the first month, we have to then go through some things here and get some general breakdown. So let's go to Genesis chapter 1. So even though we have this set up, we got to go back to the beginning so that we can figure out where we're going to start from. Because, you got Chinese New Year in March. You got Pagan New Year in January. And then here come the Hebrews, keep their New Year's in April. So they call us April Fools. But isn't that just like, the heathen to make fun of the people who doing what they're supposed to be doing? So let's begin Genesis chapter 1 and start at verse 14.
And Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years.
All right. So there is a whole lot that was said in verse 14.
Yes.
And if you don't slow down, you don't really get what's all happening. Let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night. All right. So there's a separation between a day and a night. You have this separation. All right. And it says lights, plural. So then a lot of people will say, well, we have a lunar calendar. And then they said the heathens have a solar calendar. But we do not have a lunar calendar. He said lights, plural. So our calendar has to include both of those things. Okay? And if we don't get that, then what happens is we allow people to come up and with pomp and circumstance change everything that we're doing without even giving any explanation as to why those things have been changed. So when we get, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years. So then when we deal with time, we have seasons, days, and years. Mm-hmm. All right? Keep reading.
And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And Elohim made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And Elohim set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the 4th day.
All right. So then, if on that PowerPoint slide, I want to show that graphic that is right behind March. So, and this is something that was in the almanac, and let's see if we can't tell what page it was on if you're looking. This one is the one that says why we have seasons. Mm-hmm. All right. It says the seasons occur because as the earth revolves around the sun, remember, we do solar and lunar. So watch all these things where it says he has made 2 great lights. Let them be for signs, seasons, and years. The seasons occur because as the earth revolves around the sun, its axis remains tilted at 23.5 degrees from the perpendicular. This tilt causes different latitudes on Earth to receive varying amounts of sunlight throughout the year. In the northern hemisphere, the summer solstice, so when you start dealing with the solstice, you're dealing with sun worship. You know, when you have these people who set up their worship days according to this, so when they have the winter solstice, understand what December 25th is. Mm-hmm. It is supposed to be the shortest day of the year. Understand what's happening here. So Yahweh gives us these signs so that we can count other things. We're not worshiping the signs. He said, therefore signs. Wait a minute, signs, so that you understand what's okay. Well, this is about to happen. Okay, this is for this. So these things help us tell that. We can look at a phase of the moon and know, okay, this is where we at in the month. These are our signs. We can look at what's happening with the sun and, oh, okay, this the time of year that we're in. So understand that when we start dealing with the signs. It says the beginning of summer occurs when the North Pole is tilted toward the sun. The winter solstice marks the beginning of winter and occurs when the North Pole is tilted away from the sun. So as the Earth orbits around the sun, this gives us our year. So if you try to leave the sun out of the equation, you're going to have a problem. So you have those people who just do things by the moon, saying that we have a lunar calendar. This is why you have Holydays and other worship practices that jump and go all over the year, because they just go by the moon. And if you don't add the other part in there, it doesn't stay in its season, because there's nothing about the moon that has anything to do with seasons. Mm-hmm. So this is why days like Ramadan, they may be at any time of the year, because there's nothing that holds that, because it goes lunar. What Yahweh gave us is we have to use both, and they have to be done in their seasons. To do it in the season, you got to use the sun and the moon. Mm-hmm. You can't just deal with one and keep it in the season. So the sun has to be in this equation. All right. The equinoxes occur when the hemisphere equally face the sun. At this time, the sun rises due east and sets due west. The vernal equinox marks the beginning of spring. Now, for them, those are just times of the year. All right, those are just seasons. We understand that this is the beginning of our year. Now, how do we know that? Now, we're going to have to read some things so that you understand. All right, the vernal equinox marks the beginning of spring. The autumnal equinox marks the beginning of autumn. In the southern hemisphere, the seasons are the reverse of those in the northern hemisphere. So then, as we look at these orbits or rotation, you have the Earth itself that turns. This gives us our day as it turns either toward the sun or away. So it's going to be day when it's facing. It's going to be night when it's not. So he said, I give you these two things for your times, your days, your years, your seasons. So we have that one thing, but we need the sun to even give us our day. So now we have our Earth and our orbiting moon that is going to give us our month. This is why we have the different phases of the moon as we deal with that orbit. Now you have the Earth and its orbiting moon orbiting the sun, and that gives us our year. All of that is in Genesis 1 verse 14. That's what he's saying. Every last bit of that. And you have a lot of people that say, I wish that brother stopped dealing with the vernal equinox. The what we will do, once a Gentile gives something a name, now we want to throw out the bath water and the baby. Well, it's dirty. The baby dirty. The baby was in the bath. The baby, we got to throw out the baby. So they want to throw all of that out. This is why some people wear their fringes a certain way, because they said, no, I saw them people wear their fringes like that. That's because that's what it say in the book. That's why them people wear their fringes like that. But we want to be so different that we're just going to be different to be different, not different to be right. Different so that we won't be like those other people. And that's not what you want to do. So now that we have, a general understanding of that, I want to go, let's go to Exodus chapter 12. Exodus chapter 12, and let's start that at verse 1.
Verse 1. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you.
Okay, this shall be the beginning of your months. And then he breaks it down even further. It shall be the first month of the year to you. So, we understand, and as we read further down, we're going to understand exactly what time he's talking about. Mm-hmm. So when people say, oh, those April Fools, understand, we're doing what it said in the book. Keep reading.
Speak you unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
Now, so then we understand now that he is describing Passover. So when Passover comes, that's the beginning of our year. Now, we have the same book that the people have on Sunday morning. They understand this. You think we're the only ones that can read this? You think your PhD having pastor didn't read this? He read it. He's just not going to go by it. But he read it. He knows it. Even the way they have Easter set up, it is a absolute equation from the devil to make sure that they can keep Easter in the same time frame as Passover. So they take the vernal equinox, and they then do the first full moon or new moon, whatever, after, and it is, here is Easter. So they know then, oh, that's going to be right around Passover. There's sometimes that Easter and Passover was done there on the same day. Because this is the way they made the equation. But if you ask yourself certain questions, if you pose those questions, you will be close to figuring out some things, because your question as a observing Christian should have been, so if Easter is his resurrection and Christmas is his birth, how does his birth stay the same, but his resurrection changes? That should have been all of our questions. That should have been a question. At some point, I realized as a kid, I'm always being told when Easter is. I wasn't really interested in when Easter was a year before Easter. Okay? Somehow, I all of a sudden became interested. So, Easter is what time next year, Mama? Well, we don't know yet. What do you mean we don't know? See, here come Mr. finna get thrown out for asking too many questions. Wait a minute, wait a minute, wait, whoa. So we know when Christmas is, but we don't know when Easter is? Well, not yet. The calendar ain't came out. Whoa, I got a problem. I got a problem. What? So how they figure out Easter? Nobody can answer that question. Now, I find that very interesting. I didn't find out really how Easter was counted till I got out of Christianity. Till I stopped keeping Easter, I didn't know how they count Easter. Check that out. So there's an equation, and you don't know that there is an equation. You're accustomed to these days being these days. So when we go through these things and we have an equation of how we're counting our days, there's some Christians that say, oh my God, I can't believe y'all doing this primitive thing. They don't know that their Easter is counted by an equation. They just see it on the calendar, so they think it magically appeared. But there was an equation that did that. So don't get thrown off by this keeping of this equation that we're about to deal with. Go ahead.
Verse 4. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats.
Now, we then know for a fact with what is being said, dealing with the lamb, we can then know that Exodus 12 and verse 2, saying that this month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. We then know for a fact that that is during Passover. So there's no more question about what time of year we're talking about. All right. So let's go back to Leviticus chapter 23. Because, I've heard many things, people, well, they don't really know when the Sabbath is anymore, you know what I'm saying? Because things happen, because, a lot of things, really change, so we don't know. Let me tell you something. Even in their calendars, they added 2 months, July and August, for Julius and Augustus Caesar. All right. If you take those 2 out, then start counting some of those months, they add up perfectly even with the names. You got September. You have October. So September is 7. October, octagon. Come on, we know this from watching UFC. All right. How many sides does an octagon have? I know that, son. 8, right? So 7, 8. November. Guess what November means? 9. December. What is your decimal system based off of? Tens. So then we have what? 7, 8, 9, 10. I feel like the dude in session just 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay? That's right there. But see, because we had to add these 2, now 10, 12.
You know what? And they talk about, well, what day is the Sabbath? Can we figure out what the Sabbath is? It was one of the first things that I researched in coming in here. Mm-hmm. The one thing that has not changed throughout antiquity is the number of days of the week.
Right.
That has been the most consistent thing ever. And I mean, people still refer to it in other languages, Shabbat, Shabbat, and all these other things that you find. So it's still, that 7th day is still referenced as that in many, many other countries. That's a lie. You can't figure out when the Sabbath is.
Right. This is, you can't figure it out when you don't want to figure it out.
Thank you.
That's pretty much what that is. But it's all of a scam to keep things the way they are. Because I watched a program the other night where a Christian is describing Christmas. And I mean, it was so many lies that were coming out of his mouth, but those lies were so smooth. I mean, he went to, and he threw Easter in that lie too. You know, it was a whole bunch of smoothly told lies. But there's also this thing when people say they can't tell when the Sabbath was, but they said what they call Good Friday. They say he had to be taken down because as the sun was going down, it was about to be the Sabbath. That's New Testament.
Like I said,
That's New Testament. So I asked Mr. PhD, what day come after Friday? Did I need a degree for that? And I didn't have to go. You don't have to go in the Old Testament to find that. Ask them about their so-called Good Friday. He got to be taken off the torture stake because he couldn't be up there on Sabbath day. So that whole we can't find the Sabbath is lost. Don't let anybody tell you that lie. So we're gonna go into then. Let's see. Let me look at this right quick. So let's go back to Leviticus 23, and then I want you to, if you have access to your almanac, then I want you to pull that up, because what we have here is our vernal equinox is on March 20th. All right. So, and what we read about this vernal equinox is what? We know that this marks the beginning of spring. What's happening? The earth tilt. So then now we have growth. Okay? So when we deal with those things, we know that nothing is growing in January. So as other people are celebrating their so-called New Year in January, we know that they're really worshiping the two-headed god Janus that looks into the past and the future. That's why it's called January. It's about the god Janus. So when we get ready to do our thing, the first thing you want to do is you're going to go into your almanac, and you're going to look for the new moon. So let's go to graphic number 3, where we see March. And up at the top, it has your new moons listed right there. So you want to go through on each one of these and start listing your new moons. You don't want to just jump right in to try to count the days. You want to get all your new moons first. So when we go to this, when we look, and it says new moon, the 21st day at 1:23 p.m. All right? So then we will do the new moon, March 21st. So we know that's a new moon. Then that is where the vernal equinox then starts. All right. So then before we do anything, let's go to our next month. We go to the next page. We go to April. Look at the top. It then says on that right side, new moon. And if you look, it has a picture right before the announcement of the moon. All right? All right.
Is
so
it a sliver?
When it says full moon, see? She seeketh a quarrel with me. Okay? So when you see full moon, they have it to where none of it is dark. That means the entire moon is full of light. That's the first thing that you see on the left. if you're on almanac.com, all right, you go up under that and it says last quarter. Now, if you look, the difference between last quarter and first quarter, the darkened side changes. They're on opposite sides. Okay? So then when you look at something, it then you can tell that is growing from one side, you know, and it grows and then it goes away. It's a cycle. So when you get to on the other side where it says new moon, you then see that it's completely shaded, meaning that it's completely dark. And what's happening? You have the sun, the moon, and the earth in a line. That is order. So then that makes that moon completely dark. When people say they're keeping the sliver, that means now something has moved out to the right. Something has moved out. So now you're starting to see the sliver as it moves. So there's some people, this is what they want to do because they need to have something to worship. Yahweh is a genius. He make the new moon and you ain't got nothing to worship. Ain't nothing there.
Because it's totally dark, you can't see it.
See? But this is where you see organizations do things to be different, where you have all of these individuals who have kept the new moon one way for decades. Then their leader comes out and tells them that the new moon is the full moon. Now, all of their holy days are different, you know, but you know what we pay attention to? How many people they can get to march in their costumes down at the stadium. That's the kind of stuff we'll pay attention to. We won't pay attention to, wait a minute, you just changed every holy day known to man.
They did. Let's throw it out there.
But we're not going to talk about that. But we're going to talk about how many people that, you know, they can march in front of you know, out in the street. But that just made a straight mockery of Yahweh's time and everything. So when you look at this, we should be able to look at the moon and tell what time of month it is biblically, you know, because we know where we are based on what it is. Every time we see a full moon, we know we're in the middle of the month. We know it. Go ahead.
And even in creation, Yahweh, in Genesis, it started out in darkness. And then there was light.
Right. So, he didn't say, you know, there was a little bit of light. And I said, let there be more light. But you have people, they want to be different. And they need to be different because they can't follow anything organized. So they need to be different. So they need to find a reason why they could not continue walking the way that they were taught. So then let's go. So after March, we got April the 20th. All right. So then we'll go to May. And when we look at the top, we look for new moon. It's completely shaded. It says the 19th day at 11:53 a.m. So then we know that new moon is on the 19th. So then we'll go to June. And it says the new moon for June is the 18th day at 12:37 a.m. This is, and the time that is given you is not something that our people would have fully known. So I don't argue when people get into that, well, it's this day, it's that day. Okay, so you may be off one or so days based upon where you celebrate the new moon, because that's where you count it from. Because some people say, well, the time is this, so we'll celebrate the new moon on tomorrow. So then when they count, their holy day may be a day off. I don't even quarrel with anything like that. But when your holy day is 15 days off, then that's something totally different. Okay? That is something different. So we have then the new moon on June is June the 18th. All right? So then we're going to go to July. Now you see how if you just did something by the moon, I hope y'all see this thing. You see how I keep moving back, right? You see how we started on the 20th? Mm-hmm. And then we get to the 19th. And then the next one on the 18th. Mm-hmm. And then the next one on the 17th. Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's say if we only had a lunar calendar, do you see after time how if we keep moving this day by day by day, what happened in 20 years?
Well, very much so.
We ain't even in this on this planet. We're somewhere else. So we cannot possibly have a lunar calendar. It is just in these few months. It has already, the new moon has moved. Mm-hmm. But see, this is why I tell you be careful, because you got them Enochians. Now they have an equation to make it perfect. See, so that the days are going to fall. They have perfectly divided something that can't be perfectly divided. It's absolutely, and the only way you can do that, because what's the month is not set like that. The new moon is not a 30-day or a even cycle. Mm-hmm. So the only way you got to, to do that, they got to throw in some extra. See, they got some 0 days. Mm-hmm. So they throw in a day that ain't really a day. I don't know what you do on that day, but it's a day because they have to equally divide something. But we know certain numbers can be equally divided. Mm-hmm. You're gonna come up with a half number. You're gonna come up with something. So July's new moon, 17th. All right, July 17th. We go to August, and the new moon is the 16th. See, and this is a perfect example of why we do not have a lunar calendar. How many years do you think it would take by following just the lunar calendar that we would be so far off that the holy day would not be in its season? Mm-hmm. So we need that sun and the vernal equinox. So all them people that say, I can't find no vernal equinox nowhere in the Bible. I can't. Genesis 1:14. Oh, you're looking for the word vernal. That's your problem. Mm-hmm. That's your problem right there. See, we let the Gentiles name something, then hold everybody else accountable because they can't find it in the Bible. He just made that up. He made up the name. Yahweh told you what it was.
Exactly.
See, what did they call? They call it something else. Yahweh says a dog. It's a dog.
But you know what? It doesn't mean anything, because when you look at the moon is not even in the whole scenario of determining the seasons. You can't determine the seasons from the moon at all. If you don't use the sun, what are you using?
Hey, people something else. They just think they can just keep counting to 12 from the last count that they had. But you're going to end up having a problem, because there's going to be some times that you're going to come up with a month. You're going to come up, wait a minute, it's 13 months this year.
Yeah, we had it last year.
What you going to do then? What you going to do then, Captain 12? Right. You know what you're going to do? What you supposed to do? Go to that vernal equinox and count from there. You ain't got to worry about all that other stuff. Where's the vernal equinox? Where does the season change? And when he says Abib, this means green ear. So we then know that that stuff is not changing until the earth tilts toward the sun, and then growth starts to happen. So there it is. But we so busy trying to find something to quarrel about. I remember my elder saying that brothers was trying to go over in Israel to find out when the green hair was in Israel. Now we exile, but we want to go over there and say, excuse me, y'all got corn. Excuse me, hey brother, how you doing? How you doing? I know. And look, do y'all have corn? Because I'm trying to set my time. Wait a minute, bro. How you gonna set your time by their time?
Really?
Where you live? How you gonna keep that according to their time, but you here?
You're supposed to be keeping that in all your dwellings. You don't live over there.
Man, I wish I would show up to work late. They say, hey man, you late. It's 8 o'clock in China. see if that work for you. See if that work for you. I'm on time in Australia. Well, that's where your next job gonna be, in Australia. That makes absolutely no sense, but that's us. All right, so August 16th is the new moon for that month. We go to September, and you got to be careful. When you're going through this and you're getting your new moons, every now and then, you'll turn to 1 month, and it's 2 new moons in that cycle. So do not just go quickly and grab your new moon. You'll see 1 new moon right there. Keep looking.
We had 2 last year in July.
Yeah. Oh, it'll throw you off. You have one, it'll be one new moon on the 1st and another one on the 29th. You'd be like, what? Mm-hmm. So do not just keep going through these pages so quick and you see that new moon and you think that's the only new moon for that month. All right, so then we go to October and our new moon says the 14th. October 14th is the new moon for that month. Then we go to November, and the new moon is the 13th. And then we have December, and the new moon is the 12th. So then as we even go, just from starting at March, the new moon was the 21st. April, the new moon was the 20th. The next new moon was May 19th. The next new moon was June 18th. The next new moon was July 17th. The next new moon is August 16th. The next new moon is September the 14th. The next new moon is October the 14th. The next new moon is November the 13th. And then December the 12th is that last new moon for their Gregorian calendar year. But you see how we started on the 21st and we end up at December the 12th for a new moon. So this lets you know the movement. So now that we know we have these new moons out of the way, all right? We then have to look here. Where we at? Let's go back to Leviticus. All right, verse 4. And it says, these are the feasts of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the first month at even is Yahweh's Passover. Now, the first thing you have to do is understand or begin your account the same way. And if you start your account one way, leave your account that way. Meaning, if you start counting at even, then don't jump. Because we know at even is when there is that's when the day changes. So sometimes you can do it if you count the days and then back up one, but then you have to do all of them like that, or you can get thrown off. Or you count it from the even and you stay on your count that way, and you'll be okay. So then, if we are doing the 14th day of the first month, where are we going to be? Where are we starting to count from? So if we're counting from the vernal equinox, which is the beginning of spring, this is when the earth tilts. What day was the vernal equinox?
March 20th.
All right, so that's March 20th. So then pull up your calendar, and we want to go from March 20th, and then we want to count 14 days. So I'm going to go pull up March. So then if we have March 20th, then March 20th, we count, and if we go from even, you're going to keep going and keep that count. So I'm going to count it out right here. We go 1, 2,
March 20th.
6. Okay, that's. So where are we starting that count? I need me a
13, 14. Give me a pen.
yeah, you got another one?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if we have, let's see, let me pull this up again.
I have the 3rd.
So we got the 20th.
And you start.
So let's go.
3,
So we want to
4.
count from March 20th,
Mm-hmm.
and we count 14. So tell me what you come up with. So are we doing?
Come up with April 3rd.
Yeah. I got April 3rd.
April 3rd.
It seems like where we start from, because if we start from the 20th,
Of March.
then that will give us. I got this end, mine end on the 2nd. If I count the first, where you count your first day?
My first day is I counted the 21st. From the 20th to the 21st is day 1.
All right. Because I know we got April 3rd. We already did it. But let me go back. So this is new moon. All right. Well, the rest of y'all come up with now? Y'all count?
April 3rd.
I
think everybody
that go to question. The question is April 2nd or April 3rd. I went through this before, and
You said count from the 20th.
Right. So if you do sunset on the 20th to the 21st, even on the 21st, the 21st would be day 1, 2, 3, yeah.
Because it'll start from sundown, so you count from, you start from the 21st.
Right, which would be a whole day,
And then
even to even.
all right. So we got the 3rd right there. Now the question is, hold because we could count from the 20th, the sundown
Second
as
sundown.
yeah, the 20th.
Yeah, it's
20th
the
at
second.
yeah, the 20th at sundown is
It's the second.
the first one. So because that's a new moon, that's the first day.
Yeah. So it's the
So
second.
here's the thing.
So-
It would be where we're celebrating would be the second at sundown. But the day off that you're gonna need is
Will
gonna
be
be
the
the third.
Yeah. So it's April the 2nd.
So it should be the second.
It should be
then.
the second. All right, but it's the third. Now, see that I know that might have thrown somebody off right there, because I think they done already asked for this list.
Yeah.
So then we're gonna go. Let's go back to.
Yeah, when I forgot sundown to sundown. So when you the second.
Let's see here. So now we're gonna go back.
I guess the good thing about the second is that it's a Sunday.
First.
So let me. Where am I? Okay. So, in the 14th. So then, if we have the second at sundown, then we have for Passover, and we normally do these a few times because just in case, you know, we have something off or something, we come back. Then it says, verse 4, these are the feasts of Yahweh, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. The 14th day of the first month at even is Yahweh's Passover. On the 15th day of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So then that would then be the third. So that's moving all this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then that would be. All right. So the 15th of the same month is the Feast of Unleavened Bread. 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. So then if we do that then on the 3rd, that's day 1. Then we got to count 7 days. So where is that? So I'm going to go back to April, and we had the 3rd would be, the 3rd at sundown is the first day. So then we got 2nd day, 3rd day, 4th day, 5th day, 6th day, 7th day. So that should then be the 9th.
Which is a
And that's,
Sunday.
so that's April 9th at sundown, which means you need the 10th off. Because what's going to happen is, I think that 9th at sundown is going to be a Sabbath. So let me go back to our.
It is a Sabbath.
It says in verse 7, in the first day you shall have a holy convocation, and you shall do no servile work therein. But you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh 7 days. And the 7th day is a holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein. So now you have a Sabbath on the 3rd at sundown, and then a Sabbath that starts on the 9th at sundown. All right. So then we go from there. So that's our week of Feast of Unleavened Bread. So that's Passover and unleavened bread. But now, within that week, you have to then deal with first fruits. So, verse 9, Leviticus 23 and verse 9 says, and Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when you be come into the land which I give unto you, you shall reap the harvest thereof. Then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest unto the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf before Yahweh to be accepted for you on the morrow after the Sabbath. The priest shall wave it. And you shall offer that day when you wave the sheaf an he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto Yahweh. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2 deals of fine flour mingled with oil, an offering made by fire unto Yahweh for a sweet savor. And the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the 4th part of a hin. And you shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears until the selfsame day that you have brought an offering unto your Elohim. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations. So, if you don't offer the first fruit, you can't eat any of those things made of this corn. So then we got to back up. Okay, verse 11. And you shall wave the sheaf before Yahweh to be accepted for you on the morrow after the Sabbath. So we had the Sabbath was on April 3rd at sundown. That was the beginning Sabbath of Feast of Unleavened Bread. So then first fruits is going to be the morrow after that Sabbath. So that's going to be on April 4th. At sundown, of course, which is the 5th. So I think this list that we made was all about the days that needed to be off. I don't know if we remembered that because we did it in a hurry. This other list, because that looks like the days that
It is
they're
hitting
all
that.
the days that we supposed to be off. And normally we'll have the day before and tell them that they need that other day. So let's see.
Yeah, that's true. You're pretty consistent with that.
Yeah, it leads up to that point. I think that's probably the only one. Let me see if the other one's going to do that. So now, verse 15, read Leviticus 23 and verse 15 and start from there.
Verse 15, and you shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, you shall number 50 days, and you shall offer a new meat offering unto Yahweh.
All right. So then this is one of the things that whenever I run into those moving Sabbath people, and my question is always, when I count 7 of your Sabbath, how many days in it? And for them to have 49 and they had that moving Sabbath, that means they got some day zeros in there. Some days that they decided they were not going to count. Yahweh, see, this is why I have a problem with all these, some of these other books. You got to know, I'm not saying it's not good information in a lot of those other books. Anything that causes you to go away from Moshe, drop it. Anytime something starts telling you something and it's pulling you away, 7 Sabbath. He said the 7th day was holy. So if you start having day zeros, the 7th day is no longer holy.
Right.
Because you're moving the 7th day by adding days that you say are not days so that it can follow Enoch's calendar. But if Enoch has a calendar, then Enoch is your God. Whoever tells you when to gather is the one who's in control. If Yahweh didn't tell you when to gather, but Enoch did, that's who you worship. Simple as that. It's not confusing. You want to know who in charge in somewhere, find out who gave the instruction. Okay, that person right there in charge. So if Enoch directs you, that's who you're worshiping. So that's something that we have to consider. So now we are reading verse 15. You shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering. So the sheaf of the wave offering was April 4th. So let's then go to our calendar and let's see what happens. So April 4th was there. That was a Tuesday. Now, the Sabbath after that is our first weekly Sabbath, which is then April the 8th. Now, it said count 7 Sabbaths. So we need to count 50 days, 7 Sabbaths plus 1. All right? So, count 7 Sabbaths from April 8th and tell me what you come up with. That's the beginning. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete from the Sabbath after the first fruit. First fruit was on Tuesday the 4th, and you start at the 8th. And remember now, when they say 7 Sabbaths, you got to get 49 days. So sometimes, and if you're confused, because sometimes you'll count that first Sabbath, right? But then you'll go back, and you didn't get 49 days. So there's a reason he gives you. See, Yahweh is utterly, just amazing, because he covered your possible mistake. Because if he just said 7 Sabbaths, you can count 7 Sabbaths and still not get 49, because you can count the one that you started on. But Yahweh is so keen in detail. 7 Sabbaths, 49 days. So we start counting there. So if we start from the 8th, so then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. So that's 1 Sabbath, 2nd Sabbath, 3rd Sabbath, 3rd Sabbath was the 27th, and that was 4th Sabbath, 5th Sabbath. I got 27th at sundown.
Yeah, that's what I got. I was just like, huh? At first I got the 20th, but then I 20. Yeah. Sundown to sundown.
So let me count.
Let me
Go back and make sure that that equals 49. 'Cause that's what you want to do. April. So first fruits was 4th. And then we go. So that's 1. So then 1, 2, 3. So I count the Sabbaths, but then I go back and count it the long way to make sure you get 49. That
Yeah, 27.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
May 27th, which is a
13, 14, 15, 16, 19, 20, 22. Yep, I got 27. This is 49 at sundown.
Yep, me too.
And that's that is crazy. 27. So because that's going to be at sundown, of course, that's going to begin the next day. It says 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. So let's go read that. All right. So verse 15 says, and you shall count unto you from tomorrow after the Sabbath, from the day that you brought the sheaf of the wave offering. 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto the morrow, after the 7th Sabbath, shall you number 50 days. So the Sabbath is complete on the 27th at sundown. That's 49. That then begins the 50th day. That's why the Christians will have Pentecost Sunday morning. And their Pentecost, we would have kept ours the night before, but we end up having ours on the same day. Mm-hmm. Now, how is it possible for them to have it on the same day that we had it? That means they knew when first fruits was.
Yeah.
They knew when Passover was. They knew when Feast of Unleavened Bread was. Then they counted 7 Sabbaths. Understand? No. The equation counts Sabbath. So they counted 7 Sabbaths, and I do mean 7 Sabbaths, because they counted 7 Saturdays. Then they had 49 plus 1, right? So then they had it, Pentecost on Sunday. Now, if it's 7 Sabbaths plus 1, if they thought Sunday was the Sabbath, then their Pentecost should be on Monday. Mm-hmm. It never is, never have been. This means they have always known that the Sabbath is Saturday. Always. You've never had Pentecost Monday. Never. They always knew. So when we come and we say this stuff, this is how people get to throw the cult word at you. Oh, you doing this stuff. Don't nobody know what you doing. That's some cult stuff. No, you just ain't never been in the back room where your church was counting this. See, we're doing back room stuff in front of y'all. So this is the stuff that other churches go and they get in the background. You're not allowed to be a part of what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. Not only are we giving the word away free, we showing you what they do in the back room. They write it down They get together. They come up with this. You don't find out until they offer you the calendar, which you had to pay $29.95 for, by the way, to get the church calendar. It ain't just give you the church calendar. You ain't gonna get the church calendar for free. Are you out your mind? Then not only were you not invited to be a part of that, you didn't know until it was passed out to you. So here it is, you know. Yahweh said freely, you received it, freely give. But that's why we don't have any spaceships out there in the parking lot. Well, I mean, come on. Brother sent me some stuff. They told me, Sock, don't jump on him. I said, man, I ain't got no choice but to jump on him. Jamal Bryant from New Birth Church did a video and said,
Oh, yeah.
we should grow cannabis. The church should grow weed because New Birth is the biggest land owning church. They got all that land. He said that if I grow this marijuana, I'll be able to get a lot of black males in the church. Now, what the hell did you mean by that? He gonna directly reach black males with his cannabis growing. He said, then we can teach them, then they'll learn. They'll be like, what, you got weed at the church? We're going. He want to grow weed at the church. And folks is like, this dude will do anything. But I want to bring something back to your remembrance. Jamal Bryant is also the same one who wanted to sell COVID tests for $125.
He sure did.
Not shots, tests.
Tests.
And the government shut him down. They were lining up, getting ready to go. He waited right until everybody was all scared. Go kill everybody.
He sure did.
They lining up in New Birth parking lot. $125 a test, not a shot.
Mm-hmm. And it was at the time where the government was doing it for free.
Yeah, but no, he snuck in. The government started their free one the next week. So here come old Greasy himself. He gonna slide in 1 week before the government. So that's why they had to step in. Cause they like, hey man, we doing these free right next week. So here come Greasy. He done, hey, what does Greasy do? You slide. So Greasy slid in there before the government and said $120, and some reports said $150 for a test. You know them same tests that they give you that I got stacked up in one of my offices? Mm-hmm. Them tests they give out. New Birth wanted to sell them to you at $125. So, of course he wanted to sell weed. Hell, he wanted to sell COVID. Of course he wanted to sell weed.
Well, at least the COVID tests are legal.
You know? So, hey, if he get enough, he'll find a way to make, weed growing legal in Georgia. It's legal in other states. He'll find a way. Trust me. They will find a way to make that money. So when you talk about, what we're supposed to be about, we have to deal with some of these things, and we are quick to say, if I don't know about it, it must be a cult. That's our thought process. So we think this other stuff is normal. But these people have always known this. Every Pentecost you ever had was on Sunday. It was Pentecost Sunday. That's what they even called it. They knew all of this. They've always been doing this, okay? And it is starting to show that they have known. So let's see, where did we leave off here? So, I want to jump to 21. And it says, and you shall proclaim on the self-same day that it may be a holy convocation unto you. Holy convocation. Not a gathering, but a holy gathering. So then you have to conduct yourself a certain way. So all these people talking about they keeping the feast days, and I understand if you're in, you're away from, the congregation and things like that. You have people that have just decided that they're going to have a congregation or a convocation, not a holy convocation, but a convocation down the street from the place where they're supposed to be going. Because they don't want to deal with the regulations that deal with making it holy. So you shall do no servile work therein. It shall be a statute forever in all your dwellings throughout your generations. So this is why we have, you can't work on those days because they are Sabbaths. Verse 22, and when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not make clean riddance of the corners of your field. All right, so now we're going to jump to verse 23. This one is already done for you. It says, speak unto, and Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, verse 24, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the 1st day of the month, shall you have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, a holy convocation. So, then we count our months. What month is the 7th month?
September.
Let's count that. So we had our first month in and I think we did this and backed it up because of that.
Yeah, it would put the 7th month late in October.
Yes. And that's what I think. I was like, okay, we did something here, and I should have went back through it. So we're going to have to go back through this because I think this is pushing us back too far.
It's going to be back too far.
But even if we started at, that's this one though, because we started, that's this paper, because this one right here, we started the new moon in March 21st. This listing says 1 right here. So that shouldn't be 1. We started with this one. This should have been the first one. So the first one is, because we started from the vernal equinox, and then the new moon, there was a new moon right behind that. So let's see.
That would be
Let me
right.
go back. Let's go.
21st is the new moon.
Yeah, okay.
So you would have to pick up the first month, but that's going to...
So let's go back. Because I'm coming up with different stuff than what I had before. So I got to go back. Where is this? Where is my... Okay. Okay, I'm missing something. Where did I go with this? I closed that map. Okay, there we go. So the vernal equinox is the 20th, and then
Be right, yeah.
then the new moon on March
11th.
was the 21st.
Pen stop right.
So then that was so if we, because that's where we started counting from, right? Yeah, we start counting from there. So then that's, so March 21st. See, that's that thing about trying to get that
That would be
12
right.
and 13 and
Right,
all
well,
of that.
we had 13 last year,
See,
but
that's
yeah.
what, you don't even worry about that. You worry about, you come from the vernal equinox.
exactly.
So then even on these months, that has to be just redone. Because we do 1, 2, 3, so that would be September 14th. And that is where our new moon and our trumpets is the same thing. It says on the
Exactly.
first of the month. So then we have September 14th being our Feast of Trumpets. So then we want to go back to, it's right here. So it says, verse 24, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, in the first day of the month, shall you have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, and holy convocation. You shall do no servile work therein, but you shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. And Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, verse 27, also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. So now it says the 10th day. So if September the 14th is day 1, then we want to get to the 10th day. So then we're going to go and we're going to pull up. So let's pull up September. And so we had 14th. So let's go. So we're going to start counting from there. That is our new moon, the 14th. I count 10, I get 23 at the 23rd at sundown. So that is 10. Now you want to write that down because atonement is the 10th, right? But then your count keeps going. So instead of starting back over, understand that you already at 10. Now, let's go back with your right. Now, you can always go back and check yourself. But remember, verse 27 says, on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you. You shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. All right? Now, jump down to verse 33. It says, and Yahweh spake unto Moshe, saying, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, the 15th day of this 7th month. Now, you was already on 10. All right? So now you go to 15. Now, you can start back over if you want to. You know what I'm saying? It's okay. It's all right. I'm cool with it. It's cool. It's cool. I ain't been got no weapon. Go ahead. Do what you got to do. You know what I'm saying? It's all good. It's all good. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a messenger. I'm just a messenger. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a messenger. So that is the 10th. So then we're going to go back to our calendar. And so then if the 10th was the 23rd, then we can count from there.
5 days.
So when I count from that, I get September the 28th
Me too.
is the first day of Tabernacles. All right. So then we're going to go back to our book here. And what else does it say about this? It says on the first day shall be a holy convocation. So then we know that that day is a Sabbath. All right. So then that first day is a Sabbath. And it says, and this is where this one is counted different than the Feast of Tabernacles, because it's got 8 days in this one and not 7. It says, 7 days shall you offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. On the 8th day shall be an holy convocation unto you. You shall offer an offering made by fire unto Yahweh. It is a solemn assembly, and you shall do no servile work therein. All right. So then, if we have September 28th being our first day, now I'm going to go back to my calendar, and we're going to pull up September 28th. And then that is our first day, September 28th. And when you just count from sundown to sundown, so that was 28th at sundown. So then each one of your days, you just say the number and say sundown. All right? So 28th at sundown is the first day. So then 29th, know that each one of these, we still doing sundown. So just know that and keep it in your head. You start from sundown, you keep counting. All your counts will be sundown. So 28, that's one. Okay, yep, first.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So then we gotta change. Let me go back. So
We need
if
the 8th day.
yeah, okay. So 28th. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And we got the 5th at sundown is the 8th day. And that is a Sabbath.
We don't have any high days this year.
All right. So to those who got that early version of that calendar, because they needed to, make sure you go back and look at that first half of these days, because if you took off the next day only, you're gonna have some issues right there. Because it looks like we're one day off on the top of that, but that Pentecost looked like it was like 10 days off. I don't know how that got there. But that was our preliminary count there. So then let's go back and list what we got. We have Passover, April 2nd at sundown. So the day that needs to be off is the 3rd. We have Feast of Unleavened Bread is the 3rd at sundown. So the day that would need to be off would be the 4th. We then have on the last day, looks like of unleavened bread is the 9th at sundown. So then we would need to be off on the 10th. Then we have Feast of Weeks or Pentecost. We counted that to May 27th. Let's go back over that. I want to make sure that one.
First fruits.
Huh?
Forgot first fruits.
First fruit should have been the 4th.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Thank you. So April the 4th at sundown is the Feast of First Fruits. So we got the 2nd, the 3rd, and the 4th. You know, those always follow right behind each other. So you're always going to have Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits right there behind each other. So they're always going to be, 1, 2, 3. So then April 2nd, sundown, Passover, Feast of Unleavened Bread, April 3rd, Feast of First Fruits, April 4th, Feast of Unleavened Bread, the last day, April 9th. And you can understand why they would call us April Fools. You see all the stuff we do in April? And then we have Feast of Weeks or Pentecost, May 27th. Trumpets, September 14th. Day of Atonement, September 23rd. Tabernacle's first day is September 28th. Tabernacle's the last day, the 8th day, is October 5th. All right, so y'all, take those things home and go over them. And let's make sure we are in agreement here. You can go on your almanac.com. Like Mother Lael said, if we had your email, we already sent it out so that, you didn't have to pay for it and just pull it up. I don't remember you having to pay for that before.
You didn't, but you do now. Everybody.
Where the was.
Everybody trying to make a buck.
Because we used to just pull it up, on the fly. Just go to this and y'all can count. That's the way it was. So, I guess that's how it works. Hey, you're having to pay for software about a year now. It used to be, you bought software one time. That's it. Now they hitting you over the head every year. Happy New Year. Pay me for next year's usage. So, go through that. We will, of course, put our final stamp on this next week. So we want you to go all the way through it. But I think we corrected some things that we had before. And I don't know if we were in the process of when we were doing this, listing the days that we were supposed to be off and kind of got off in doing that because it was a rush thing. Some people had to have, and then, I did most of this while I was in the not so urgent care and then didn't look back at it. So I don't know if we were counting the days that needed to be off. And that's lining up over here, except one day, which was that Pentecost. And that one will throw you off every time.
Yeah. If
you just count the Sabbaths. So you always want to count the Sabbaths. And I'm going to go back over that one. I'm going to go back over all of them. But if you just count the Sabbaths, sometimes it can throw you off. So make sure when you count your 7 Sabbaths that you get 49 days within that. So let's see, did we have anything else?
The new year.
So what would that be, the first month? March 21st. So that would be your Hebrew New Year. And that's the thing about our or a Hebrew calendar. Our months will never line up with the Gregorian calendar. So there's a difference from March, April, and April, May. What does it saying? It's saying that it's going to be in March. By saying March, April, it's in March toward the ending of the month going into April, because our months are going to sit differently than the way the Gregorian calendar months sit. So our things are not going to always be, as you see, our new moons are not on, the first of the month. So our new months are not their new months. So that's something that we have to remember. All right. So, and so let's see. Do I want to go into anything else? No, we'll save that later. All right. So, that's all that we're gonna do for tonight. I want everybody to go over the calendar. I always, every year, we say, all right, this is the calendar. Everybody agree? Then you have some people that come back 6 months later and say, well, you know what? Such and such and such and such. I don't know. Hey, you had an opportunity to count them days, but they was probably out shindigging, so they didn't have time to count when the rest of us was counting. But that's all we're going to do for tonight. Let's leave out with the prayer. We're going to rise and face the east. All males, remove your head covering. And females always pray with their head covered. Abba Father, Most High Covenant Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov. Abba Father, we thank you for giving us this understanding. We thank you, Abba Father, for even giving us correction, Abba Father. We know that if a father loves his child, he does chastise him. He does correct him. He does want him to be on the right path. We thank you, Abba Father, that your chastisement, your correction is not so powerful that we can't get back up. For we know, Abba Father, you have all power. But we thank you that you don't put all of that power when you chastise us, when you correct us, when you put us on the right path. We thank you for giving us an opportunity to understand your word and to spread your word. We pray, Abba Father, that you would magnify the works of our hands, that we would continually be able to do these works that you have allowed for us to do. We pray that you would keep a hedge of protection round about us, round about our homes, round about our children, Abba Father. For we know that even they are a prey to the adversary, the devil, just because of us. To get to us, the adversary will go to our children. So we pray, Abba Father, that you would protect them as well, and understand that coming up in this word, in this place, is difficult for our children. And we pray, Abba Father, that you would have mercy on them, and remember us, Abba Father, that we are backing into this culture, that we were not fully raised up in it, knowing everything about it. So we pray that you would continually keep us on the path, but we also pray that you would have mercy on us when we get off of it. We ask these prayers not only for those that gather with us physically, but even those that gather by way of internet, by any other means. We pray, Abba Father, that you would count them as being with us physically. In Yahshua HaMashiach's holy and divine name we pray. Amen and hallelujah.